Good morning. My name is Ray Anderson. I'm here to expose you to the 3D Experience dashboard. We'll start out with a little bit of information about myself so you know who's talking to you. I've been in aerospace industry for approximately 38 years. One of the first digital aircraft I worked on was a 777, Boeing 777. And I was a tooling engineer, but I've also done R&D and product engineering since then. What we had back then was just these drawings to start with. And with these drawings, we had some idea of size and scope of what we were designing. At the time, I was a tool engineer, so I was designing tooling for the constant section of the aircraft and the entry doors. A lot of times I had no idea what the internal structure looked like, so I would have to start out using what information I had in the CAD system, which was CATIA V4 at the time, to lay out my tool structure and to start planning tooling for the station frames and the door frames, etc. During that project, we had this program called Fly-Through. What it did is it tessellated the geometry that was coming out of CATIA V4 and placed it in its position in the aircraft. And each day I could see the evolution of the aircraft. So as the designers were designing the aircraft, I could see a tessellated version of that and put my tooling up against it to make sure that my tooling didn't collide with the aircraft, and I had locators in the proper locations to build the aircraft. But this was a daily tessellation, so it was just a rough representation of the aircraft. Fly-Through could also do a refined view. One of the limitations here, though, is that we only had one Fly-Through machine, so I had to sign up for time on that machine, and I had to post my designs out to the server that did the tessellation, and then my design would get combined with the aircraft so that I could see, based on my filtering, my aircraft and my tooling. So this was a big advancement considering the date. Here it says 1996. We were doing this design work not blind. We were getting information a lot sooner than we were used to. I used to receive blank drawings with a grid on it, and they'd tell me to build that, and that was not possible. So I would have to go to the designer and see what his layouts looked like, and literally measure them on a Mylar, or have him measure them on the CAD, depending on which aircraft it was. In this case, it would be on the CAD. So things have changed a little bit. Jump forward a few years, like 5 years ago, I was privileged to work on a project at the National Institute for Aviation Research using 3D Experience, which is what we're talking about today. Here I am flying a prototype for the drone that you're going to see. Here I was just testing the modes, how it responded. The flight controller inside had to be programmed specifically for this type of an aircraft, so that was a fun challenge. And here's the same aircraft in full scale. It ended up with a 13-foot wingspan. And then I'm just giving you a quick overview. So here's the gimbal in the front of the aircraft. This is almost a fully composite aircraft. There's some 3D printed components in here as well. And this gimbal was 3D printed, used some robotic servos, FLIR camera, The Sony camera is not mounted in here at this moment in time, but you get the idea. And scrolling over here, let's find the virtual version. So here is the aircraft in the cave at Nayar. So you can see it, you can kind of see the corner of the cave back here, but this was viewing through the 3D glasses. Okay, so back to 3D experience, now that you have that background. In 3D experience, we have communities, and we can see who our members are of this community. Right now I'm logged in as Victor, the Vice President of Product Development. Over here you can see concepts, ideas, and solutions. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the pipeline, and in the pipeline you see these same things listed: weatherproofing, spec documents and service documents for the landing gear. Can we advertise by using stickers on the wing? This has to do with like color scheme. Can we add cargo hooks? I do know that the drone was designed to carry 5 pounds of cargo for search and rescue, but could we carry external cargo? Another idea here. Where is the cargo space inside? And it's right back here in the, not the tail section, but close to the tail section. But something that's really come up as a higher priority and been moved into an actual requirement is wing stability. Over here on this metrics reader, we can see that drone sales are dropping against competitors. This competitor has jumped up, not competitor, but market space has jumped up. So we get a nice overview here on the community. Okay, so you kind of get a feel for that. Drilling down a little deeper, here are the prioritized issues, how far along the issues are in their maturity, where they in the project's schedule, and here's the wing stability issue. It says it's in work, and here's the aircraft that, the top note of the aircraft, this product. The issue is right here on the wing, so we can see the detail on that. So now looking at the bill of materials, the wing is highlighted because I just selected it over there, but here's the 2 wings that need to be modified in order to address this issue. There's some dimensions given here, footprint that needs to be laid out. I know there were several different winglets tried. One is just a blade, and then this one is a formed wing, so it has a lot of contour to it, made it more efficient. And by the way, these views are interactive, so you can zoom and pan. And you're probably used to that in CAD, so just keep in mind that's available here as well. Looking at the CAD view, again, then some simulations had to be done in order to determine which of these winglets with different material thicknesses, material types, structure content, which of these deformed the most. And this one deformed the least, 16.2 millimeters. This data that's supporting this is straight out of the design. This is not translated, it's not exported, it comes straight off of the platform. So as this design is being modified, the analysis simply has to be updated because the geometry is being fed straight from the platform. So we're going to choose this solution. It has the least amount of deformation under the least amount of load and has the least amount of weight. So it's a win-win-win. Here we can see the M BOM. So over here on the right is the manufacturing BOM. We are all familiar with the fact that to design something claims a 3D space, but to fabricate it not only claims space, but sequences of assembly. So you have to sequence how things go together. You can't build from the outside in, for example. You have to build from the inside out in a lot of structures. So this can be sequenced, even though over here in the engineering BOM, it may start with the skin and work its way in. And over here, it's starting with the structure and working its way out. Those are the types of things that you'll see in an M BOM. That's different than the engineering BOM. It's a different view of the same data. So then those operations get put together in a sequence that you can see here in the operation view. So here is the second operation. First operation was just put the subassembly on the belt. You'll notice that there are gaps, like from operation 10 to operation 20. That's because there may be some more detail that needs to be filled in, so we leave gaps. We do the top level operations, kind of like an engineering BOM, top level, and then work our way down. If we think there's going to be more steps in between, then we may skip from 10 to 50 and go in 50 increments. That way we can add in steps. But here we step along the conveyor and we can see the winglet being installed, the other wing installed, putting the propulsion system in. You can see there's a gas engine here. There's also an electric variation to this, fully electric. Okay, drilling down. To show the assembly, and finally what I called the globe being added to the nose of the aircraft to protect the cameras. So and also reduce the drag, parasitic drag. So here you can see the factory floor and the steps along the way, and you can get into more and more detail as the design matures and fill in these gaps. Also being done in parallel, let's back this up here. The commercial twin, we call it. Commercializing a product is important because if you can't sell it, then there's no need to build it, really. So here we have commercial property being produced based on the design. Now at this stage of this video, you can see there are no winglets. Down here in the control system, you're going to see a design change show up. So here it says new engineering change has shown up. It's being accepted. And there's the new change. We've got the winglets on here. It's also over here on the e-commerce site and in the parts catalog, so you can now you can now purchase your winglet to add to your aircraft. So all along the way, the design has been central to everything. You have one version of the design available to everybody in the workflow. And this workflow is shown here, where there was an issue with wing stability. We can see who modified this document to document the issue. We can see what resolved it, which was a change action. There's a new requirement built here. So you can see the type. There's a requirement that drove the change action. And then down here is the CAD data, the physical product. If I could get it to freeze, I could hover over physical product, but you can read it there. So the physical product was fed in as a resource of context. And then Simon did his study to make sure we chose the right design. There may have been, well, there were 3 proposals. And then Dan had done those proposals, and once Simon decided which one was correct, then Dan incorporated that. And the other 2 proposals they're still in the database, but they're not active on this design. Okay, so you can see the full traceability. A lot of people call it the single thread. If you think back to here, the single thread was fly-through, but fly-through was not within my CAD system, so I had to take what I saw in fly-through, the collisions or gaps that I observed, had to be basically written down, and then I would have to go back to the CAD system and implement the changes to support it. Okay. Here, it's all live, all time. It's nice because now I don't have to worry that I'm working on out-of-date data. Sometimes I might be, on this program, I might be a week behind because engineering hasn't submitted their design into the system to be rendered yet or tested for fly-through. So there was a lot of rework done, but the rework was done quickly. Here, any rework that has to be done along the process chain can be done immediately. So all that to say that no longer do you have manufacturing and engineering and analysis and electrical and mechanical all working in their silos. They're all working on the same product all at the same time. So it's all connected from ideation to in-field service, even in-field repair. It's all connected so that everybody in that entire chain, including the customer, can see the latest configuration. So we'll go back to our community tab here, and I'd like to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, want any clarification for any of these points that we've talked about here, feel free to give me a call.